The spotlight effect. Why nobody is thinking about you as much as you think. Imagine you're walking into a room. You suddenly become aware of every little detail about yourself. Maybe your hair doesn't look quite right. Maybe you're wearing a new outfit. Maybe you just said something awkward, and instantly a thought enters your mind. What is everyone thinking about me? Here's the psychology fact that most people never realize. The vast majority of people aren't thinking about you at all, not because they dislike you, not because they don't care, but because they're too busy thinking about themselves. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. And once you understand it, you'll never look at social anxiety, embarrassment, or self-consciousness the same way again. Let's start with a simple question. Have you ever replayed an embarrassing moment in your head for days? Maybe you tripped while walking. Maybe you answered a question incorrectly in class. Maybe you sent a message and immediately regretted it. Your brain treats these moments like major events. You imagine everyone noticed. Everyone remembers. Everyone is judging you. But are they really? Most of the time, the answer is no. And psychology has actually proven it. In one famous experiment, researchers asked students to wear an embarrassing t-shirt featuring a singer that many students considered uncool. Before entering a room full of strangers, the participants predicted that around half the people would notice their shirt. After all, if you were wearing something embarrassing, surely everyone would see it. Right. Wrong. When researchers asked the people in the room what they remembered, only a small fraction had even noticed the shirt. The participants had dramatically overestimated how much attention they were receiving. This is the spotlight effect in action. We think a giant spotlight is shining directly on us, but in reality, everyone is standing under their own spotlight. And that's where things get interesting, because the spotlight effect isn't really about other people. It's about the way your brain processes reality. Think about it. You experience every second of your own life. You know every mistake you've made, every awkward conversation, every insecurity, every flaw. You're constantly aware of yourself, so your brain assumes other people must be equally aware of you. But they aren't, because they're busy worrying about themselves. The person you're worried is judging your outfit. They're worried about their own appearance. The person you're afraid is criticizing your presentation. They're worried about how they come across. The stranger you think noticed your mistake. They're probably thinking about what they're having for dinner. Everyone is the main character in their own story. And that's exactly why they aren't paying nearly as much attention to yours as you think. But here's the dangerous part. The spotlight effect doesn't just make you uncomfortable. It can quietly control your life. It stops people from speaking up. It stops people from starting YouTube channels. It stops from approaching new friends. It stops people from going to the gym. It stops people from chasing opportunities, not because they lack ability, but because they're afraid of being watched, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of being judged. And often, the judgment they're afraid of exists mostly in their imagination. Think about how many opportunities people miss because they assume everyone is paying attention. Years later, they don't regret being embarrassed. They regret not trying. Now, this doesn't mean nobody notices anything. People do notice things occasionally, but nowhere near as much as your brain wants you to believe. And even when they do notice, they usually forget almost immediately. Try this experiment. Think of a random stranger you saw 3 days ago. Can you remember exactly what they were wearing? Can you remember every mistake they made? Can you remember anything embarrassing they did? Probably not. And that's exactly how most people remember you. They don't. Not because you're unimportant, but because their minds are occupied by their own lives. So how do you overcome the spotlight effect? Start with one simple question. What if nobody cares as much as I think they do? Ask yourself that whenever fear shows up. Before posting online, before speaking in public, before trying something new, before taking a risk. Because the truth is surprisingly freeing. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to spend much time worrying about you. The spotlight you've been afraid of was never as bright as you imagined, and once you realize that, something powerful happens. You stop living for other people's opinions, and you start living for your own goals. So the next time you feel embarrassed, self-conscious, or afraid of being judged, remember this. You are the center of your world, but everyone else is the center of theirs. And that's why nobody is thinking about you nearly as much as you think. The spotlight was never really on you.